The station floated in the darkness between three dying stars. It was old. Older than most species in the galaxy could remember. The walls were made of a metal that no longer existed anywhere else. The lights inside glowed with a soft blue color that hurt human eyes if they looked too long. Una Park stood at the entrance of the great chamber and tried not to show her fear. She was 42 years old. She had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. She had learned 6 alien languages. She had studied the history of every species in the Galactic Assembly. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times in front of mirrors, in front of committees, in front of anyone who would listen. None of it mattered now. Her hands were shaking. The doors opened. They made no sound. Everything in this place was designed to make humans feel small, and it was working. The great chamber was round. 12 platforms rose from the floor in a circle, each one holding a representative from one of the elder species. They were tall. The shortest among them was 3 meters high. Their bodies were different shapes and colors. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had skin that moved like water. But they all had one thing in common. They looked at Una like she was an insect that had wandered into their home. She walked to the center of the room. Her footsteps echoed. The floor was cold through her thin shoes. She had been told not to wear her military uniform. Earth wanted to appear peaceful, friendly, willing to learn. Looking back, she would realize how foolish that was. "Hi, Arbiter," Thalos spoke first. He was the leader of the Moran Collective, the oldest species in the assembly. His body was long and thin, covered in silver scales that reflected the blue light. His eyes were black and showed nothing. "You're the human," he said. It was not a question. "I am Ambassador Una Park," she replied. Her voice was steady. She was proud of that. "I represent the people of Earth and our colonies. I come before this assembly to request. We know what you request." Talos raised one of his 4 hands. The gesture meant silence. "You want membership? You want trade rights? You want protection under our laws?" "Yes," Una swallowed. "Earth has been traveling among the stars for 300 years. We have established peaceful contact with 17 species. We have never started a war. We have technology and resources that could benefit the assembly. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves." Silence. The 12 representatives looked at each other. Some made sounds that might have been laughter. Others simply stared. A creature covered in brown feathers leaned forward. This was Bren of the Osiri. His voice was high and sharp like breaking glass. 300 years, he said. "My species has existed for 900,000 years. We were building cities when your ancestors were still living in caves. And you think 300 years makes you ready? Time is not the only measure of worth," Una said. She had prepared for this argument. Humans grow fast. We adapt. We learn. What takes other species 10 generations, we accomplish in 1. "You also die fast," Thalos said. "Your lives are short. Your memories are shorter. You make the same mistakes over and over because you cannot remember what your grandparents learned." "That is not it is exactly true." Thalos stood. He was even taller than Una had realized. "We have watched your species, human. You fight among yourselves. You destroy your own planet. You create weapons before you create medicine. You are children. Dangerous children." Una felt heat rise in her chest. Anger. She pushed it down. Every species was young once. Every species made mistakes. We are asking for guidance, for the chance to grow alongside you instead of apart from you. No, the word fell like a stone into water. Final, absolute. "The assembly has already decided," Thalos continued. "There was no need for this meeting. We allowed it only because some among us felt you deserved the courtesy of hearing our reasons." He looked around at the other representatives. None of them disagreed. "Earth is denied membership. You will have no trade rights with assembly species. You will receive no protection under our laws. You will remain in your small corner of the galaxy, and you will not bother us again." Una stood very still. The words hit her one after another like physical blows. 15 years of work. 15 years of hope. Gone in 60 seconds. May I ask why? Her voice was quiet now. Almost a whisper, Thalos made a sound that might have been a sigh. Because you are not worth our time. Because you have nothing we want. Because the galaxy is vast and ancient and you are small and new. Go home, human. Build your little ships. Live your short lives. In 10,000 years, when your species has either grown up or destroyed itself, perhaps we will speak again. Yuna wanted to scream. She wanted to tell them they were wrong. She wanted to list every achievement of human history, every act of courage, every moment of genius. But she knew it would change nothing. Their minds were closed. They had decided what humans were, and nothing she said would change that. She turned and walked out of the great chamber. She did not look back. The journey home took 3 weeks. Yuna spent most of it alone in her cabin, staring at the stars. She wrote her report. She recorded her testimony. She prepared herself to tell her people that they had been rejected, dismissed, told they were not good. Enough Admiral Hondejo was waiting for her when she landed. He was an old man with gray hair and a face full of scars from battles fought long ago. He had opposed this mission from the beginning. He had said the Assembly would never accept them. He had said they were wasting time begging for approval from aliens, who would never see them as equals. Yuna hated that he had been right. I heard, he said. His voice was gentle. That surprised her. She had expected anger. It did not even consider it, she said. Tears were forming in her eyes now. She could not stop them. They had already decided before I walked in. They just wanted to watch me fail. Han nodded slowly. He put a hand on her shoulder. Then we will make them watch something else, he said. We will make them watch us succeed. Yuna looked at him. What do you mean? The old admiral smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting for this moment his entire life. They think we are weak because we are young. They think we are foolish because we are short-lived. They think we will fade away and be forgotten. He turned and looked up at the sky. At the distant stars where the Assembly sat in their ancient station, confident in their judgment. They are wrong. And one day, they will remember us. They will remember this day when they told Earth it was not good enough, and they will regret it. Yuna did not know what to say. She was tired. She was heartbroken. She could not imagine how anything could change what had happened. But Hondejo could imagine it. He had been imagining it for years. And now, finally, he had permission to begin. 50 years is a long time for humans. It is nothing for the galaxy. The Galactic Assembly continued its work after Earth's rejection. Treaties were signed. Disputes were settled. Trade routes expanded across 1 million star systems. The 12 elder species grew richer and more comfortable with each passing decade. They rarely thought about the small blue planet on the edge of known space. When they did think about it, they assumed Earth had accepted its place. This was normal. Many young species were rejected by the Assembly. Most of them reacted the same way. They spent a few years angry. Then they spent a few decades sad. Then they simply gave up and faded into the background of galactic history. The Assembly had seen it happen 100 times before. Earth went quiet. No ships left the Sol system. No communications were sent to Assembly space. Trade requests stopped. Diplomatic messages ended. It was as if the humans had simply decided to disappear. Councillor Bren of the Asuri brought this up at an assembly. Meeting 30 years after the rejection, his brown feathers ruffled with mild concern. "You should send someone to check on them," he said. The silence is strange. Perhaps something has happened. "Hi, Arbiter." Talos waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. What could have happened? They probably destroyed themselves. Young species often do. It is no concern of ours. But we should know for certain. If they have developed dangerous technology, if they pose a threat, they pose no threat. Tellus's voice was cold. They are primitives with primitive ships and primitive weapons. Even if they wanted to harm us, they could not. Let them sit in their silence. Let them sulk. In 1,000 years, perhaps we will find their ruins and study them as a curiosity. Until then, they are irrelevant, the Assembly agreed. A vote was held. The decision was unanimous. Earth would be ignored. But Bren was not entirely satisfied. He sent 3 intelligence probes to the Sol system on his own authority. They were small and fast and nearly invisible to most sensors. They would observe Earth and report. Back, none of them returned. The first probe stopped transmitting the moment it entered the system. The second lasted for minutes before its signal cut off. The third managed to send a single image before it was destroyed. The image showed a flash of light. Nothing more. Bryn studied the image for weeks. He could not understand what had happened. Human technology should not have been able to detect his probes. Human weapons should not have been able to destroy them so quickly. Something was wrong. He brought his concerns to the assembly again. Again, Talos dismissed them. Equipment failure, the High Arbiter said. The probes were old. They malfunctioned. It means nothing. Bren wanted to argue, but he could see that no one was listening. The assembly had decided that Earth was not important, and they would not change their minds without proof. Proof that Bren could not provide, because every attempt to gather information ended in silence. He stopped sending probes. He stopped asking questions. Eventually, he stopped thinking about Earth at all. This was a mistake. While the galaxy forgot about humanity, humanity was not forgetting about the galaxy. Admiral Han Deho had died 15 years after the rejection, but his plans did not die with him. He had spent his final years building the foundation for something massive, something that would take generations to complete. His granddaughter, Han Nari, now commanded Earth's forces. She was 50 years old. She had never seen an alien in person. She had never traveled beyond the Sol system. Her entire life had been dedicated to one purpose: preparing for the day when Earth would return to the stars. The shipyards were hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Thousands of asteroids had been hollowed out and converted into factories. Millions of workers lived inside them, building ships day and night. The metal came from mines on Mercury. The fuel came from processing plants on the moons of Saturn. The weapons came from research facilities buried deep beneath the surface of Earth itself. Han Nari walked through the main construction bay of Station 7 around her. Robots and humans worked together to assemble the hull of a battlecruiser. It was the 500th ship of its class. 500 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Production is ahead of schedule, said her aide, a young man named Kong Jin-woo. He walked beside her with a tablet in his hands, reading off numbers. The new reactor design is working better than expected. We can increase output by 12% if we— How many ships do we have now? Han Nari interrupted. Jin-woo checked his tablet. 847 combat-ready vessels. Another 160 in various stages of construction. We should reach 1,000 within the next decade. 1,000 ships. Han Nari remembered her grandfather talking about this number. He had calculated it carefully. 1,000 ships was the minimum needed to challenge the combined forces of the Galactic Assembly. 1,000 ships was the number that would make the elder species take notice. And the crews? She asked. Training is complete for all active vessels. Every captain, every officer, every soldier knows their role. We have run simulations against assembly tactics. We have studied their weapons, their strategies, their weaknesses. Danu paused. We are ready, Admiral. Han Nari stopped walking. She looked up at the massive battle cruiser above her. Its hull was dark gray, almost black. Its weapons were hidden inside armored compartments. It looked nothing like the elegant ships of the assembly. It was ugly, brutal, efficient. It was human. My grandfather told me something before he died, she said quietly. He told me that the galaxy sees us as children, short-lived, foolish, forgettable. She turned to look at Jin-woo. Do you know what he said we should do about that? Jin-woo shook his head, said we should let them keep thinking that. Let them ignore us. Let them forget us. Because the day they remember us, it will be too late for them to do anything about it. She started walking again. Around her, the factory continued its work. Metal screamed as it was cut and shaped. Sparks flew from welding torches. The air smelled like oil and electricity. Send a message to all station commanders, Han Nari said. Full production. No breaks, no delays. I want those final ships completed in 8 years, not 10. Ginwu made a note on his tablet. Yes, Admiral. May I ask why the urgency? Hanari did not answer immediately. She had received intelligence reports from sources outside the Sol system, hidden observation posts that watched assembly space without being detected. The reports spoke of movement in the outer regions of the galaxy. An empire called the Vorith Dominion was growing stronger. They were aggressive. They were expanding. And the assembly, fat and comfortable after millennia of peace, was not prepared. War was coming. Han-Nari could feel it, and when it arrived, Earth would be ready. Tell the commanders one more thing, she said. Tell them that our time is almost here. 50 years ago, the galaxy told us we were nothing. Soon, we will show them what nothing can do. Jinwu nodded. He did not fully understand what she meant, but he trusted her. Everyone trusted her. She was a Han, and the Han family had spent 3 generations preparing for a moment that had not yet arrived, but it would arrive soon. And when it did, the silence would end. The first world fell in 6 hours. Keller Prime was home to 3 billion Osiri. It was a beautiful planet covered in forests and rivers. The Osiri had lived there for 200,000 years. They had built cities that touched the clouds. They had created art that made other species weep with its beauty. They thought they were safe. They were wrong. The Vorith Dominion came from the dark spaces between galaxies. No one knew where they originated. No one knew how long they had been traveling through the void. They appeared at the edge of assembly space without warning and began to destroy everything in their path. Their ships were different from anything the assembly had seen. They were organic, grown rather than built. They moved like living creatures through space. And they carried weapons that could burn entire continents in seconds. Keller Prime sent a distress signal when the Vorith arrived. The signal lasted for minutes before it was cut off. By the time assembly ships reached the system, there was nothing left but ash and silence. Counselor Bren had been visiting the Moran homeworld when he heard the news. He flew back to Vilair Prime immediately. The Great Chamber was already full when he arrived. All 12 representatives were present. For the first time in centuries, they looked afraid. High Arbiter Thalos stood at the center of the room. His silver scales had lost their shine. His black eyes were tired. 3 worlds have fallen, he said. His voice was heavy. Keller Prime Shatha, the mining colonies of Ves, all destroyed. No survivors. How is this possible? Demanded a representative from the Euron species. His body was made of living crystal, and it vibrated with anger. We have the largest fleet in the galaxy. We have weapons that can crack planets. How can we be losing? The Vorith do not fight like other species, Thalos replied. They do not care about territory or resources. They do not negotiate or retreat. They simply destroy. They are not conquering us. They are exterminating us. Silence fell over the chamber. The word hung in the air like poison. Extermination. For 10,000 years, the Galactic Assembly had been the supreme power in this region of space. They had fought wars and won them all. They had crushed rebellions and absorbed empires. They had believed themselves invincible. Now they were dying. We must call for reinforcements, Brent said. His voice was shaking. Every ship from every member world, every weapon we have, we must combine our forces, and we have already done that, Talos interrupted. Our combined fleet met the Voroth at the Nelos corridor 3 days ago. We outnumbered them 2 to 1, and Thalos did not answer. He did not need to. The expression on his face said everything. Bren felt his heart sink. The Nelos corridor was the Assembly's strongest defensive position. If they had lost there, if they had lost with superior numbers, what do we do? Someone asked. The voice was small, defeated. Thalos looked around the chamber. For the first time in his long life, he did not have an answer. The Assembly had no plan. They had no hope. They had spent so long believing they were the most powerful civilization in the galaxy that they had never considered what would happen when. We send messages, he said finally, to everyone. Every species we know. Every species we have rejected. Every species we have ignored. We beg for help. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. Bren knew what Thalos was thinking. They were the Galactic Assembly. They did not beg. They did not ask for help from lesser species. But pride meant nothing. When you were facing extinction, the messages went out across every communication channel. They reached corners of the galaxy that had not heard from the Assembly in centuries. They reached species that had been dismissed, rejected, forgotten. They reached Earth Fleet Admiral Kong Wujin was 53 years old. He had spent his entire life preparing for war. He had trained on simulators that recreated every battle in human history. He had studied the tactics of Alexander and Napoleon and every great commander who came after them. He had served under Han Nari until her death 5 years ago, and she had taught him one final lesson before she passed. When the call comes, she had said, do not hesitate. Do not wait for permission. Do not let them beg twice. Show them what we have become. He stood on the bridge of the flagship Inheritance and read the Assembly's message. Around him, his officers were silent. They had waited for this moment their entire lives. Their parents had waited. Their grandparents had waited. Now, the waiting was over. Send word to all ships, Wujin said. His voice was calm, steady. Full fleet deployment. We leave in 6 hours. His communications officer, a young woman named Park Sumin, looked up with wide eyes. All ships, Admiral? All 1,000. All 1,000. The order spread across the Sol system like wildfire. In the asteroid belt, factory workers stopped their machines and watched as battle cruisers powered up their engines. On Earth, families gathered around screens to watch the fleet assemble. Children pointed at the sky as the ships rose from hidden bases and disappeared into the darkness. 50 years of work, 50 years of sacrifice, 50 years of waiting, it all came down to this. The fleet traveled through slipspace for 18 hours. When they emerged, they were at the edge of assembly territory. Directly ahead of them was the Nellos corridor, where the broken remains of assembly ships drifted in the void. Beyond that, the Varath Dominion was advancing. Admiral Kang Wuzhen opened a channel to the Assembly's command frequency. He knew they would be listening. He knew they would be watching. He wanted them to see exactly what was coming. 1,000 warships emerged from the darkness. They were arranged in perfect formation, each one exactly where it was supposed to be. Their hulls were dark and angular, covered in armor that absorbed sensor scans. Their weapons were hidden, but ready. They moved through space with a precision that no assembly species had ever achieved. On Velar Prime. High Arbiter Thalos stared at his display screen. His 4 hands trembled. Around him, the other representatives were speechless. Yeah, that is impossible, Bren whispered. They had nothing. They were primitives. How? Thalos remembered the rejection. He remembered the small human woman standing in this very chamber, asking for acceptance. He remembered telling her that Earth was irrelevant, that humans were children, that they would fade away and be forgotten. He had been so certain. Admiral Kong Wujin's voice filled the chamber. It was strong, confident, without fear. Hey, this is Fleet Admiral Kang Wujin of the Earth Defense Force. 50 years ago. You told us we were not worthy of a place among you. You told us we had nothing to offer. You told us we would be forgotten. The display showed his face. He was not angry. He was not gloating. He was simply stating facts. You were wrong. The transmission shifted to show the full extent of the human fleet. Ship after ship after ship, stretching across the screen until they could not all be counted. 50 million soldiers. Weapons that your scientists cannot understand. Technology that your engineers cannot replicate. This is what we built while you ignored us. This is what we became while you forgot us. Thalos found his voice. Why? He asked. The word came out as a croak. Why would you help us after what we did? There was a long pause. When Wujin spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost sad. Because someone has to. Because those worlds you lost held innocent people who did nothing wrong. Because the Vorith will not stop with you. They will keep coming until there is nothing left. He paused. And because 50 years ago, a woman named Una Park asked you for the chance to prove what humanity could do. You refused her, but her request still stands. And now, whether you want us or not, we are going to prove it.
Wow.
The transmission ended. On every screen across assembly space, 1,000 human warships turned toward the Voroth Dominion. The war had begun. The Voroth had never known fear. They had traveled across the emptiness between galaxies, consuming everything in their path. They had destroyed civilizations that were old when the stars were young. They had faced weapons that could tear holes in space itself and survived. They thought nothing in this galaxy could stop them. Then they met humanity. The first battle took place in the Shatha system. The Varath had established a base there after destroying the original inhabitants. 200 of their organic ships floated among the ruins. Feeding on the remains of the dead world, Admiral Kong Wujin sent 300 ships. The assembly commanders, watching from a safe distance, thought he was being too careful. 300 against 200 should have been enough to win, but not quickly. Not decisively. They were wrong. The human ships did not approach in the standard formation that assembly tacticians used. They split into dozens of smaller groups and attacked from every direction at once. The Voroth tried to respond, but humans moved too fast. They did not wait for orders from a central command. Each captain made decisions in seconds, adapting to the battle as it changed. Captain Yuntae commanded the destroyer Silent Dawn. He was 32 years old, young by military standards. His ship was small compared to the battlecruisers, fast and lightly armored. It was designed to get close to enemy vessels and hit them where they were weakest. 20 minutes into the battle, a Voroth command ship tried to escape. It was the largest vessel in their fleet, carrying what human intelligence believed was a coordinator organism, something that connected all the other Voroth ships together. If it escaped, it would warn the rest of the Dominion. Yuntae saw it running. His weapons were damaged. His engines were overheating. Half his crew was dead. He had every reason to let someone else handle it. He pushed his ship to maximum speed. Anyway, the Silent Dawn caught the command ship at the edge of the system. Yuntae fired everything he had left, but it was not enough. The Voroth vessel was too large, too heavily armored. It would escape in seconds. He made a decision. "All hands abandon ship," he said over the intercom. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Get to the escape pods." "That is an order." His first officer grabbed his arm. "Captain, what are you doing?" "My job." He waited until the pods were clear. Then he aimed the Silent Dawn directly at the Voroth command ship and activated the reactor. Overload. The explosion lit up the entire system. When it faded, there was nothing left of either vessel but dust. Yuntae became the first human hero of the war. He would not be the last. The assembly commanders watched the battle in disbelief. They had never seen anything like it. Human tactics were chaotic, unpredictable, and impossibly effective. They took risks that no sane species would take. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation when it meant victory. "They are insane," one of the Moran officers said. "They throw away their lives like they mean nothing." An assembly analyst, an elderly Assyri named Yal, shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "They know exactly what they are doing. Their lives are short. They have always known they will die, so they have learned to make their deaths mean something." The Voroth felt something new after the Battle of Shatha. They did not have a word for it because they had never experienced it before. It took them many battles to understand what it was. Fear. The war continued for months. Human fleets moved across assembly space, meeting the Voroth wherever they appeared. They did not wait for the enemy to come to them. They hunted on the ground. Human soldiers proved even more terrifying than their ships. Lieutenant Borishin was 28 years old. She commanded a company of 40 soldiers on the planet Veth, where a Voroth ground force had landed. The assembly garrison had already retreated. They said it was impossible to hold the city. Too many enemies. Not enough weapons? Not enough time. Borishin disagreed. She positioned her soldiers in the ruins of a factory complex. They had limited ammunition, limited supplies, and no hope of reinforcement. The Vorath force numbered over 2,000. Any reasonable commander would have retreated. Borashin was not reasonable. They expect us to run, she told her soldiers. Every species they have faced has run. They do not know what to do when someone stays and fights. The first wave attacked at dawn. The Vorath came in their organic armor, creatures bred for killing. They expected to sweep through the human position in minutes. 18 hours later. They were still trying. Borashin and her 40 soldiers held that factory for 18 hours against 2,000 enemies. They used every trick humanity had ever invented. They set traps. They created ambushes. They pretended to retreat and then attacked from behind. When they ran out of ammunition, they fought with knives. When they lost their knives, they fought with their hands. By the time reinforcements arrived, only 12 of Borashin's soldiers were still alive. But the Vorath force had been destroyed. 2,000 of them, killed by 40 humans who refused to give up. The Vorath commanders could not understand it. They analyzed the battle over and over. The humans should have died in the first hour. They should have retreated. They should have done anything except what they actually did. But humans did not follow the rules that other species followed. They did not calculate their chances and accept defeat when the numbers were against them. They fought harder when they were losing. They became more dangerous when they were wounded. They treated death as a tool, not a failure. The Vorath began to avoid human forces when possible. They had never done that before. 6 months after the war began, Admiral Kang Wujin led the final assault on the Vorath home fleet. It was gathered at the center of their conquered territory, a massive concentration of their remaining ships. If it survived, the Vorath would rebuild and return. If it was destroyed, the war would end. Wujin brought 700 ships. The Vorath had over 1,000. The assembly commanders advised caution. Wait for more reinforcements. Build a stronger force. Do not risk everything on one battle. Wujin ignored them. We have studied the Vorath for months, he told his captains before the battle. We know how they think. We know what they fear. They fear us. They have never faced anything like humanity before. And today, we are going to show them why. The Battle of the Void lasted 9 hours. Human ships tore through the Vorath fleet like fire through paper. They used tactics that the Vorath could not predict. They sacrificed ships to create openings that other ships exploited. They fought as individuals and as a whole at the same time. When it was over, the Vorath fleet was destroyed. Their command vessels were captured or killed. Their coordinator organisms were dead. For the first time in their long existence, the Vorath Dominion had lost a war. Admiral Kang Wujin accepted their surrender aboard the largest captured vessel. The Vorath leader, a massive creature that had consumed worlds, knelt before a human who would live less than a century. How? It asked. Its voice was like grinding stone. We have conquered galaxies. We have destroyed gods. How did you defeat us? Wujin looked at the creature for a long moment. He thought about Yunte. He thought about Borashin. He thought about every soldier who had died to make this moment possible. Because we have something you do not, he said finally. We know we are going to die. Every single one of us, from the moment we are born, knows that our time is short, and that makes us dangerous. Because we are not fighting to survive forever. We are fighting to make sure our children have a better tomorrow. We are fighting for something bigger than ourselves. He turned and walked away, leaving the defeated Vorath in the darkness. You should have studied us more carefully, he said over his shoulder. Then you would have known not to come here. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the real victory was still waiting on Villar Prime. The Great Chamber looked different now. 50 years ago, the walls had been cold and intimidating. The blue lights had made everything feel ancient and unwelcoming. The 12 platforms had risen like mountains, designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. Now, a 13th platform stood among them. It was not made of the ancient metal that no longer existed. It was made of steel from Earth, shaped by human hands, placed there by human workers. It was smaller than the others, simpler, but it was there. High Arbiter Thalos stood at the center of the chamber. His silver scales had faded with age. His four hands trembled slightly. Around him, the other representatives watched in silence. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They were waiting for the humans. Admiral Kang Woo-jin had been invited to attend. He had refused. He said his job was finished. He had won the war. The peace was someone else's responsibility. Instead, he sent someone else. The doors opened. They still made no sound. Some things never changed. Yuna Park walked into the great chamber. She was 127 years old. Her hair was white. Her face was covered in wrinkles. Her body was thin and fragile, kept alive by medical technology that Earth had developed during its 50 years of isolation. But her eyes were the same, sharp, determined, full of fire. She walked slowly down the same path she had walked 50 years ago. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Every representative in the chamber watched her. They remembered. Some of them had been there the first time. Some of them had voted to reject her. None of them were laughing now. Yuna reached the center of the room and stopped. She looked up at the 12 platforms. She looked at the creatures who had dismissed her so easily. She looked at Thalos, who had told her that humans were children. They were irrelevant, that they would be forgotten. She did not speak. She waited. Thalos stepped forward. His movements were slow and careful. For the first time in 10,000 years, a high arbiter of the Galactic Assembly bowed to another species. "Ambassador Park," he said. His voice was quiet. "On behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I welcome you." Yuna inclined her head slightly. "High Arbiter, we have prepared a seat for Earth." Thalos gestured toward the 13th platform. "Your people have earned their place among us. More than earned it. Without humanity, the Assembly would no longer exist. We would be ash in memory, destroyed by the Vorith, like so many others." "Yes," Yuna said simply. "You would be." The words hung in the air. They were not angry. They were not cruel. They were just true. Thalos continued. "We were wrong to reject you. We were wrong to dismiss your potential. We were wrong about everything." Paused. "I was wrong, and I am sorry." It would have been easy for Yuna to accept the apology gracefully. It would have been diplomatic to say something kind, something about forgiveness and moving forward together. That was what the Assembly expected. That was what a proper ambassador would do. But Yuna Park had not spent 50 years waiting for this moment just to be diplomatic. "You are sorry," she repeated. "That is good. You should be." She took a step forward, and even though she was old and frail, every being in that chamber felt themselves lean back. "But I did not come here for your apology. I did not come here for your gratitude. I came here because a man named Han Daeho asked me to deliver a message, and I promised him I would." Elos blinked. "A message." He died 40 years ago. He spent his entire life preparing for the day when Earth would prove itself to the galaxy. He built the first shipyards. He trained the first commanders. He created the foundation that became our fleet. Yuna's voice grew stronger as she spoke. He never saw any of it. He never saw the ships he designed protect worlds he would never visit. He never saw his granddaughter become the greatest admiral in human history. He never saw humanity save the species that rejected him. She looked around the chamber, meeting every eye, that he knew this day would come. "And he wanted me to tell you something." The chamber was completely silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. "He wanted me to tell you that you were right about one thing," Yuna said. "We are children. Our lives are short. Our memories are shorter. We make the same mistakes over and over." "All of that is true." Thalos frowned. This was not what he had expected. "But you were wrong about what that means." Yuna's eyes blazed with intensity. "You thought our short lives made us weak. They make us strong. Because we know we do not have forever, we make every moment count. We do not wait for the perfect time. We act now. We do not preserve ourselves for battles that might never come. We fight today for the tomorrow we will never see." She pointed at the Moran representative. Your species lives for 10,000 years. You move slowly. You think slowly. You were conquered by the Vorath because you could not adapt fast enough to face them. She pointed at the Asiri. Your species builds beautiful things that last for centuries. But you could not build weapons fast enough to save your own people. She pointed at each representative in turn. You are all ancient. You are all powerful. You are all wise. And none of that mattered when something new and terrible came from the darkness. Her hand dropped. Her voice softened. We were not fighting for ourselves. Han Deho taught us that from the beginning. We were fighting for the children who would come after us, for the galaxy that would exist long after we were gone, for the chance to prove that the small, the young, and the overlooked can change the course of history. She walked toward the 13th platform. Each step was slow, but she refused any help. She climbed the stairs on her own. When she reached the top, she turned to face the chamber.